All right. Hello, everybody. Hey, Whiskey. Hey, Jack. How's it going? Oh, man. Let's see if we are good. All right. Let's raise this monitor a little bit. Actually look up instead of looking at my feet. Okay, so Bevy 0.14 RC 2 is out. RC 1 is not a release. Never install RC 1. I don't even know if you can. I think they probably took it down. But I feel like that's what we're going to do today. So we're in the middle of this other game that this is the level editor for, right? And the thing that I'm doing with that game right now, just to give a kind of a status update, is this functionality. So this is a raw WGPU test project. And my goal is we have 2 sprites here. And I want to make one sprite be able to go through the other one using the depth map or the depth buffer. So I was able to do that with WGPU, but I think because I was able to succeed at that, I'm going to spend a little bit more time integrating that. And it just so happens around this time that the 0.14 RC is out for Bevy. So there's going to be a bunch of churn in a second. Well, not churn. Churn is the wrong word. Maybe it's the right word. I don't know. But basically, what I want to do over the next week or two is there's a pull request in here for a 2D depth buffer. I don't know if this is the PR that I'm going to be able to find. Yeah, okay. So there's a PR in here with a 2D depth buffer. And this is what I would need to be able to write to that depth buffer for the other tiles and everything. So I want to integrate this, but to integrate this, I kind of have to move forward a little bit because it was put up during the release cycle. So I'm thinking what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make sure that all of the ecosystem crates that we need for the game are updated. So things like Bevy ECS tile map, I have a PR up for. This one actually is already accepted. I don't know if they're going to ship a RC for Bevy ECS tile map, but I'm hoping that because the code is just here, that we get a 0.14 release of Bevy ECS tile map over the next month or so. And then Leafwing Input Manager is another one that I did. There's one test failing here. And then I think Bevy Common Assets, which is the Bevy Asset Loader crate, has a release candidate, so that'll go out pretty soon probably. Let's see. What is the... I always forget what to look at. There's a milestone, there's a release candidate document. So I want to find the release candidate document and then maybe go through some of the examples, look at some of the new 3D rendering features. Because while I've seen a bunch of them, and we get a bunch of new lighting and rendering and stuff, I haven't actually used all of them yet. So that's the plan. This is a PR that is a bug fix that we actually need at some point. But it looks like that's going well. I think we would start off with Bevy Color today, because there's a whole new crate for Bevy Color. It has a whole new bunch of, not functionality necessarily, but there's a whole bunch of new stuff relating to color and color spaces and which color types are supposed to be used for which purpose. So Yada, yada, yada. This doesn't look like what I want. Should have found this before I started streaming. Let's see. Maybe we go look at the Bevy website. Not the website specifically, but the what does C bug mean? It means bug with the letter C on front. Means that this is a bug. So if you click on this, this person is having an issue where app exit doesn't close the app if called on startup. So they are creating a new app, adding the default plugins, running a startup system in their main function, and then in their startup system, they're trying to exit immediately. And apparently that's not working for them. So that's what bug means. That, like, this should work, and it looks like it doesn't right now. If you click on bug, you can see all the bugs and whatnot. And you can kind of filter by anything, actually. So if I wanted to filter by math, for example, here's all the stuff that's happening in the, like the Bevy math crate and things like that. There's a curve working group. So I assume that this PR right here is for like curves and splines, part of that working group. I haven't been following that too closely, but I saw something earlier today about moving a camera on a spline or a camera on a curve. That was very cool. Ed Squircle primitive. Oh, wow. That's funny. Is this going to go in? Hey, Beach. The C maybe, oh, yeah. It's not C as in like the C language. It's C as in like A, B, C, D, S. They're all like groups of labels. So where do we find the labels? I can never remember how to use GitHub anymore. I don't know. I feel like everything is always in not the place that I remember it being. So you can see here, A is area. Not all of them mean something, but A is area. So we've got accessibility, animation, a whole bunch of other stuff. There's some talk of potentially trimming some of these down. You can see how many kind of issues are in this category on the right-hand side here. And then there's C. I think C is really... I don't know what C stands for. I don't think it stands for anything, actually. Maybe change. But yeah, just like many projects, not all of these labels are always used. There was a cleanup 2 weeks ago, but I don't know how much more cleanup there's going to be. So let's go Bevy engine, website, pull requests. I think it's already merged in. There are some logging changes here. State types. There's a whole new state set of examples now that would be cool to go through today. Oh, rendering summary. Is this everything? Summary of, oh. Oh, no. This is, I don't think this is part of the release. This is just a really cool document that Nth made. So this is basically, if you are curious about WGPU and the Bevy pipelines and stuff like that, this is a great document to go look at. It's mostly to keep the tags organized and in a certain order. Yeah. Yeah, Bevy state. Okay, I think what we are looking for is already in. So let's go look at the release content. There's notes and guides. The Bevy releases are fantastic. And it's due to a lot of work that people put in over the next like 2 weeks or so. So we've got Meshlets are experimental. There's going to be a way larger blog post on meshlets. I've seen some of the early drafts, but I think we'll push meshlets off. I think I'll probably do its own video later on. Background color is now, so UI image used to have a color field. That color field used to be used for tint and background color. And this PR, if I remember correctly, separated those things. So now you can add like a background color component, and that'll be the background color, and then the color on the UI image will tint the image that you're rendering for like a sprite or whatever. Computed states and substates. Let's see, is this nice? This has some stuff in it. There's a bunch of examples that are already in for a bunch of these things. Query joins is one that I want to look at. So query joins is, let's find the PR for query joins, actually. Add join, get state, query joins. This looks right. I haven't used joins yet, but now, so there's this query type, right, that uses, that you use in Bevy systems. And joining, I think, is an inner join on those queries. I love those labels. Maintainers of MSVC can never agree on which tag to use. Probably this is where all their energy goes. Doubt it. I mean, keeping labels organized in an open source project is like really tough, because you're basically like applying everybody's use case more or less, and the more maintainers you have, the more people want different things. So it becomes a social problem more than a technical problem. Like labeling things is fine, right? Like you can just label whatever, tag whatever. But making those meaningful and reliable for people is tough. UVec2 when working with texture dimensions. Yep. So this used to be an F32 or two F32s or something like that. And now when you're working with texture dimensions, those are UVec2s. There's a new GPU image that replaces the previous image for things that you're sending to the GPU. Rework animation to be done in 2 phases. I don't know much about this one. I know there's... So animation clip uses UUIDs instead of hierarchical paths based on the name component to refer to bones. So interesting. I wonder how you access them then. Animation target should be placed on each bone that you wish to animate in order to specify its UUID and the associated animation player. GLTF loader, as expected, automatically creates a bunch of those. So if you're using GLTF, you probably don't have any changes. Moving a bone around the tree or renaming it no longer prevents an animation player from affecting it. That sounds like a nice bug that's fixed. So let me get a terminal up here and let's start running some of these examples too. All right, clear. Let's do GitHub, Bevy. Yeah, I was doing something here. Okay, let's stash that. Git checkout main, git pull. Probably open this. Already had it open apparently. Okay, so let's take a look at some of these examples. Crates, assets, examples, 2D. Let's see, is there a color set of examples? Doesn't look like it. Shaders. State is one of the new things. So we could start with state instead. So this is the states example. Let's get these windows next to each other. So we'll do cargo run example states, I think is the right one to do, maybe. Interesting. Features. Bevy DevTools is new too. If I can type, that would be great. So when you run examples, you can enable features using the features flag. And a lot of the Bevy crates have their own self-named features. Is it a review stream or are you going to do some development later? I think that I'm going to spend today looking at 0.14 stuff. Diving into maybe some of the 3D examples that I haven't looked at before. And then we'll get back to game development next weekend. Because I want to do that depth buffer stuff, and that depth buffer stuff is basically not going to work until it works, if that makes sense. Did Cart ship any feature for 0.14? He always seems so busy, but there's a little progress shared. I think Cart basically touches like a whole bunch of stuff. I don't know what specifically he has his name on, if that makes sense, but like anything that's major architectural, Cart is usually involved with. So there's an observer PR up right now. Oh, this is the state stuff. Let's see. Can I find what I want using the GitHub UI? Pull requests. Generalized ECS reactivity with observers. It looks like they're trying to get this in for 0.14. I don't know if it will actually land, but this is one of the things that I saw. I don't necessarily think it was rude. But yeah, basically Cart does a lot of the architectural stuff as far as I'm aware. And this is a big PR with wide-reaching implications for like events versus observers and things like that. And it's just one of the areas that I know that they were actively working on recently. UI stuff is definitely being worked on, and the editor is definitely a priority. Okay, so we've got states app state transition here. None to some menu, which is what we had with the play button, and then transition some menu to in-game. If we look at the code, it doesn't look like this is a particularly deep example. So we've got init state app state, which is pretty typical. That'll be defined by this enum. So this enum is got a states derive on it. This is as it existed previously. I'm just covering it so that when we cover the next two things, people know what I'm talking about. Hello. Remember, I look Bevy not just to learn Rust. Now I want to build the next WoW, but better. That is a common failure mode. Like trying to pick a project that is gigantic for like the first thing. Okay, so we've got app state, which has two states, menu and in-game. We've got menu data, which holds a button entity. A couple of setup functions, couple of colors. Color RGB is now color sRGB. And a lot of the colors have moved off of the color. They're no longer consts on color, they are palettes. So we'll take a look at palettes in a second too. See, setup menu, just a box, a button, UI image, play text, and then the button entity here. And then we've got a menu system for handling that button specifically. And to go to the next state, you access the resource for next state with your type argument. So in this case, it's app state, and you just set it. So when this button is pressed, we transition to in-game. There's cleanup. I think there's a new function for cleanup, actually, now that I think about it. I don't remember what it's called. But I vaguely remember there being a function that was added, or a system that was added, that would do basically what we just saw. Parallel, cleanup GitHub actions, Bevy init. I don't know that I'm going to find it under cleanup. Let's try maybe remove entities or something. I don't remember what the name of this PR in particular was. Let's look at closed PRs. Map entities from resource. Remove limit on render layers was this iteration. All right. I don't know that I'm going to find it, so I'm just not going to keep looking for it. But basically this cleanup menu system basically removes anything, or in this case, it just removes the button entity. But there's a new system that I think I remember getting merged that will just clean up anything with a component on it. So this will be really useful for things like menus, where you can basically take cleanup menu and in, I don't know, add systems or something, it'll be like cleanup menu, type argument of the component, and then on exit, you'll be able to do like cleanup menu, like menu items, and it'll despawn recursive all of the things that are tagged with menu items, which is really nice. Really, a really nice little quality of life thing. Change color, movement. Yeah, so there's not too much going on here. Basically, trigger some systems on enter for a specific state, on exit for a specific state. The menu system only runs in the app state menu. These are common conditions, or run conditions as they're called. We get this nice new log transitions function, which is really nice. So we can log transitions for app state, and that's what we're seeing log out here. So any state that you have in your Bevy app will now, or is capable now of, with one system add, just logging out any transition that happens anytime. And then substates and computed states. I haven't seen custom transitions. Cargo run example substates. This is probably going to need the feature, yeah. Bevy dev tools. This looks like the same example. Did I just run the same example? This example illustrates substates. Substates are states that only exist while the app is in another state. Okay, so there's paused, and then add substate is paused. Enable state scoped entities might be what I was thinking of. No, that's not. Is it what I'm thinking of? So basically there is a function now where you can have entities that only exist inside of a single state. What does that say? That says skate scoped entities should work without Bevy hierarchy, despawning entities not recursively, and the doc for yeah. So this is part of the state changes. Move utilities example from Bevy state and add concept of state scoped entities. Although I'm not entirely sure. Let's go look at the docs. So the docs are up because they did a release candidate. We don't have to run them locally. You do have to specify that you are, that you want to look at the RC. Enable state scoped entity for clearing S, read more. Okay, so the documentation for this is on state scoped. Entities marked with this component will be removed when the world state of the matching type no longer matches the supplied value. Okay. So do we have to, yeah, okay, we have to wrap everything in state scope then. Yeah, okay. So when we spawn this, there's is paused, which I thought was a state. Is that a component? Interesting. So state scoped is paused. That's the only thing that's in this example, and it is a component. I feel like this feels weird. I mean, debug clone copy default partially hash substates. So this implicitly gets component. State scoped. Oh, maybe state scoped has component, and then is paused is the thing inside of it. So state scoped is this. This implements component. That makes sense. And then anything labeled with this for a particular state will get cleaned up when that state exits. That makes sense. Okay. So we've got substates, regular states. We've also got computed states, which are a little bit more complicated. I feel like substates are like, if you're in game, then it can be paused or not, which are fairly straightforward to think about. And then obviously you can, given the... It's a little awkward that these examples are exactly the same because it doesn't look like anything different is happening. But basically the idea here is that this play button gets a state scoped component with the is paused state as an argument to it. And then when you hit play, you transition out of that state and thus that gets removed. And then you can pause it with space. So that's cool. I think this one, if I remember correctly, is way longer, so I'm not going to go into it. This is like 700 lines. They're trying to do like, hey, you could use this for a tutorial mode in that example. Yeah, state scoped is a component, is paused is not, definitely. Oh, hey, Talon. How's it going? Where are we? Release content. Okay, fixed camera projection plugin. Immediately applied deferred. Support for KHR. Texture transforms. Deep end dithering. Ooh, sampling is another thing that I want to look into at some point. It seems fairly straightforward, but do I get it correctly that videos of your course are free, but I'd have to pay for source code and Discord server access? The videos are the thing that I put behind the paywall. So all of the things that I put up for workshops and stuff, the text for the workshops is just on the website. But the videos take a lot of effort to upkeep and re-record and whatnot, or more than, say, the text. So that's the... Yeah, I need to do a redesign of that pricing page, for sure. Random 1D shader function has been replaced by the similar rand f. Okay, so that's just a random float. Also, that's a shame. What do you mean? Remove the update assets and asset events schedules. Animation graph stuff. I think I'll do animation graph stuff off stream because I don't have a lot of context around it. Alpha mode goes into Bevy render. Direction 3DA and other direction types. That's a pretty quick one. We've got dir. I think. Are we doing direction 2D or are we doing dir 2? I thought it was dir 2. Because right now we have dir 2 and dir 3, so maybe that migration guide just hasn't been updated yet. Again, we're looking at things that are like pre-release that haven't been updated yet. These Bevy live streams are great Bevy content for the Rust community. I'm glad you're appreciating them or finding them useful. Reflect, treat proxy types correctly when serializing. Configure surface needs to be on main thread. That sounds like winit related stuff. XYZ A color space. Color. I don't think that there's an example for color. I might be wrong. Let's see. I think we can just dive into the code and I can show y'all if you want to look. Those are tests, docs. Ooh, we've got diagrams. That's hype. So Bevy color may be better to look at it on the website if there's diagrams. So the color type now has sRGBA, linear sRG, or not linear sRGBA, linear RGBA, and then a bunch of other like approaches and color spaces. Linear RGBA is what we send to GPUs. So that's anything that's going to go to the GPU generally seems to be linear RGBA now, which makes sense because that's the way the GPU is used to handling it. sRGB is like what you would get out of Photoshop or something like that. Typically, unless you make the changes. This is like, I feel like color seems very easy until you look a little bit below the surface. So here we've got linear sRGB, which is what's going to the GPU. And then we've got the lab space, the sRGB space, and a bunch of color spaces there, or ways to access that. And then XYZ, which is, I think, the underlying basis for a decent amount of these conversions. But then we've got radial, like LCH and stuff like that. Let's see. These options delegate to the concrete color space contained by color, but will convert to awk LCH for operations which aren't supported. Oh, that's cool. I think there was some conversation around having functions on color being a little bit of a foot gun. but there is a trade-off between like usability and what people expect and what you get. HSV has a definition of hue, so it will be returned. sRGB doesn't have a native definition for hue, converts to awk LCH and returns the result. Yeah, that's interesting. Implicit color state conversion. I know there's been a ton of conversation about it, so I'm not going to share any opinions. Those conversations have already happened effectively. Awk LCH has been chosen as the intermediate color space. So let's take a look at palettes, because palettes I think is one of the really interesting things, contrary to it just being like a folder of constants. But color used to have a bunch of consts on it. I think now all color has is black and white, black, none, and white. You can see here on the left. So then you've got basic CSS and Tailwind. I guess basic is the original CSS set of colors. CSS is the current CSS set of colors, so CSS 4 plus, which is what you would get on the internet. It's cool that these are actually show up. Is this an image? Are these images or are these? Huh. I don't think I knew that you could do this. Let's mute that. I didn't know that you could do this in docs. Interesting. That's not the source that I wanted to look at. That's cool though. So yeah, CSS, straightforward to convert to showing on the internet. And then there's also Tailwind. I am curious to see if this palettes folder will grow or if this is going to be the kind of preset for a long time. Because there's Tailwind, there's a whole bunch of other kind of themes, right? There's what is it, Capuchin? Explore colors. So like this is something that a lot of people have a lot of opinions on. Each one likes to kind of like set up their own constants and whatever. I wonder if this palettes module is going to expand to include more, or if it's going to, or if this is going to be it. And it's basically going to be, don't expand this, do it in a custom crate. Will Bevy ever have multi-threading on the browser through WASM? I think there's the start of that has gone in, but it's not in any way like end user usable, if that makes sense. Like the start of work to do multi-threading on WASM has started, but it's not in a state where you can just be like, let me turn this flag on and get WASM multi-threading. So I think people are working on it. I think people are interested in being like front runner in terms of the multi-threading stuff. But I don't think it actually works today. You can envision a palette for the standard Bevy theme colors for the editor. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense, actually, now that I think about it. Make Bevy color dependency of Bevy render. So a bunch of color stuff, color. Replace from world, sysinfo diagnostic plugin, awk LCH, parallel iteration helpers. Oh, interesting. Is this... That's funny. So there's a couple of things in here that need to be like merged together. The direction 2D and then the rename of direction 2D and 3D to dir2 and dir3 are both in the migration guides right now. Intern mesh. Yep, sprite sheet bundle and atlas image bundle have been deprecated. Those, I feel like they were deprecated last release. Maybe they weren't actually deprecated, and I just thought they were deprecated. I think the docs pointed you to using Texture Atlas, as of the last release, and sprite bundle and image bundle. So those have been like soft deprecated for a full release now. Commands into Bevy ECS world, GPU array index buffer. There's a whole bunch of gizmos and stuff that have been added. The Squircle one looks really interesting, actually. I like the idea of having a Squircle rounded border for UI stuff. I am on a Mac, so we're already looking at Squircles. Hey Spencer, how's it going? Okay, so app, audio, dev tools, games, gizmos. So there's 2D gizmos, 3D gizmos, axes, and light gizmos. The light gizmos are the ones that I've looked at the least. But let's pull up the. I think every gizmo is now in the 2D and 3D examples, which is a little bit overwhelming. What is this called? 2D gizmos. Although I'm not sure that I have like a better option. Because basically this is just saying like, hey, there's a whole bunch of gizmos you can use that are 2D and 3D. And then if you want a specific one, you'd be looking at the docs anyway. Let's see, line styles. And then, okay, yep, line joins. I feel like I don't see line joins changing. Maybe that's straightforward, and then I feel like I don't see the line joins changing. That could just be me. A keyboard could have disconnected itself. But there's a whole bunch of gizmos now. There's a whole bunch of like the Bevy math crate has greatly expanded over the last 3 months. So there's all sorts of new shapes and stuff. And just having these gizmos is amazing, honestly. So we've got 3D rounded rectangle, we've got cube there. That's an actual cube, but sphere, looks like rays. 2D rectangle in 3D space, 2D circle in 3D space. We've got these ones with the arrows are configurable as well. I wonder if that arc there is part of that. I think that arc, I wonder if that arc is part of the arrow or not. Rounded cuboid, arc resolution, arc 3D. It looks like the arc is by itself. Double-ended arrow, tip length, arrow. Yeah, okay, so the arc is just placed in a convenient location. It's an interesting place to put it. Makes it feel a little bit like an axis control. Like a rotation axis control. Let's see. Perspective. Drawing gizmos, left, right, change width, line width. The axis aligned bounding boxes are, it looks like only on the rectangular gizmos, which is interesting. Press U or I to circle through line joins. Oh, I forgot. The grid that is on here as well is also a gizmo. I don't know why I was looking at that going, oh, obviously it would just have a grid. Oh, that's the issue right there. Okay, so there's inverse clip from world. What caused that? Let's go back in and take a look. Is that perspective? Yeah, okay, the perspective is broken. I wonder if somebody already has a PR up for that. Pull requests, mesh support. Issues, Squircle, Super Ellipse, Gizmos. Doesn't look like there's an issue, so I think I'll just failed to process shader. Let's fire off an issue here. Since we are looking at an RC candidate kind of stuff. New issue. Bug reports. We might be able to actually fix this, but I'm not going to do it on stream. I think that the inverse clip from world changed names, actually. Maybe we just do a PR right now. Inverse clip from world changed to something else, I think. I don't know actually if that's the new one or the old one. Yeah, it looks like this might have just not gotten cleaned up. Because the normalized matrix naming PR changed the namings for these. So maybe we just do a PR right now. Clip from worlds. Let's see. From clip world, unjittered, view projection, inverse view projection. View from world, get clip from view, from clip from world. I feel like it's not mentioned here. Let's check the source. Go down. Inverse view projection and inverse clip from world. Okay, it looks like it is in this PR, or at least it did change in this PR. Inverse view projection. So view inverse view projection changed to world from clip. Inverse clip from world. I think world from clip is probably what we need there. We need the shader, which is in a completely different folder. Shaders. I actually don't know which shader we're using here. This might actually be a deeper change than I thought it was, just thinking about it. If there's no shader. So I might leave it and do it later. Have you seen that Rust-based OS? Redux? Or which one? Not sure how late you joined. Really wish there was text gizmos. Yeah, I think there is people, or they're forming a working group for deciding whether cosmic text or parley, I don't know how to pronounce it. They're forming a working group to decide which one of those two to use, and then I assume that once that happens, that more text stuff will start to show up. I don't know that I need a text-based gizmo, though, now that I think about it. What would you use a text-based gizmo for that you wouldn't use one of the other spawns for? Oh, Parlay is line bender. Yeah. That makes sense. I've heard of Redux, but I haven't used Redux. Steve. Okay, let me file this as an issue because I don't think I'm gonna have to dig into the actual crate. Bevy Gizmo source lines.wgsl. Looks like it needs the change. And I'm not going to test it well on stream, so I'm going to file an issue and this is 0.14.0-rc.2, I guess, for what is the main commit right now. There's no easy way to add world space text gizmos, like visually show a player's coordinates at their transform, for example. Can you not just add like a text bundle? I guess it would be easier to have it running constantly. The one thing that I feel is weird about the gizmos is that they are, I'm blanking on the official name for it. The thing is that they need to run all the time to display. And that is a distinct difference than the way that I work with any other like sprites or whatever. Like I just spawned sprites once, and gizmos change the way that my system has to run, I guess, is the weird thing. I don't know. It feels like there's a gap between moving from gizmos to sprites or back and forth or whatever. I don't know that they're really meant for doing that, but yeah. If you want to have a text bundle of world space, you need to translate it by the projection every update. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, immediate mode is what I was thinking. Yeah, thank you. Did I keep this on my, what did you do? Cargo run. What went wrong? So this is actually inside of the Gizmos lions.wgsl shader. Yada, yada, yada. Just to show what we're looking at here, it's this, and then hit P to toggle perspective. I feel like this interaction is one of those things that's hard to test. Cargo run examples 3D. Yada, yada, yada. If your bug is rendering related, copy the adapter info. I don't think the adapter info is really that important, but we're going to do it anyway. Do they have just the struct, so we'll just do the struct. I don't think the cargo version or anything is going to be super important, but again, you never know. You feel smart for knowing that. Oh, if you cannot get Bevy to build or run on your machine, okay, that's not us. Bevy version, yada yada, what you did, hit P to change, what went wrong. Yeah, I think actually we don't need any additional information. I think anybody who's worked on the rendering side or Gizmo side of stuff will just know. This is not a third-party crate issue. I think this is just a shader issue. I think we just need to rename this function name. I think that's enough information. Submit. Okay, cool. And now I don't have to think about that while we're streaming. I might go back and try to fix that myself afterwards, but I'm not going to do it on stream. Okay, release content migration guides. Where are we in the migration guides? Gizmo line joints. Disentangle stuff, hue traits. I think something to add gizmos once and draw at every update was added recently. Propagate gizmos. There was a change that made gizmos work in fixed time steps. So they are like not true immediate mode anymore. But it does take a little bit of work to get them to work like that, I think. Maybe it doesn't anymore. But yeah, there was definitely something like that. Hue traits, leftover references, binning, archetype access, store IDs for query iteration. I feel like I'm not seeing any of the rendering stuff that I expected to see in the migration guides. Maybe they aren't in here. Maybe they're somewhere else. Color specialization, remove world cell. Color math 4, awklab, awklch, animatable. Animatable. I haven't worked with animatable yet. Animatable, interpolate, blend, post-process. The likelihood that this is just sitting in its own thing is probably low. Animatable. Let's see. RG animatable examples. Nope. This is probably just implemented on stuff. Changes to make Faraday optional, true. Meshing for Triangle 3D. There's a bunch of meshing stuff. There's a float ord in Bevy math that got moved from Bevy utils. Update glam. Micro optimize some rendering stuff. Yada, yada, yada. Optimize event updates. There's clear coat. I don't think clear coat is really interesting to work with right now, though. Like, it is interesting. We have I think we had it on one of these issues. I think it was last week was clear coat. Maybe it was the week before. Wow, it was 4 weeks ago? Whew. Time flies. I think this is the PR. So clear coat is just this. It's the like varnish or lacquer on top of something. And that is supported in the standard material now. And I don't think there's a lot to actually talk about. But it's very cool. GLTF support for the clear coat extension. And you can make as many golf balls as you want. Vec3A, system IDs. Happy to see PC Walton get into Bevy more. They've been absolutely cranking out rendering PRs. And not just that, but like, if you look at the... Did I just close that or did I? If you look at the actual PRs they make, like, look at all this description. If you wanted to get into rendering, like I do, and you were like confused at all about like what clear coat was or how it worked, like these descriptions are amazing. And then the code inside is also usually very, very well commented. Like if you're looking at rendering features, PC Walton's PRs are a fantastic way to just like dig into stuff. Filmic color grading. Tracing layer customization, remember that. WGSL color operations moved. Oh, Bevy render mask, okay. Yeah, that's fine. Gamma, pre-saturation, shadows, midtones, highlights. Somebody was asking about how to achieve like a teal and orange look. I think that this is what they got pointed to. Making a 2D game currently, but doing it with Bevy Velo feels more like a more fun way to do 2D games. I'm glad you're enjoying it. Every time you see 3D features, you want to make a 3D game. Yeah, well, I'm doing like one of the reasons that I chose to do an isometric projection style game right now is because I'm kind of waiting for a bunch of these rendering PRs to get in and stuff like that for 3D things. And I'm a little bit, I think like the animation of bones and stuff is going to be something that I'm going to have to dig into quite a bit. And I am just not like a Blender expert. So it's going to take me a little bit. So that's why I did the 2D isometric projection instead of 3D. Even though the 3D would make the things that I'm working on with the depth buffer significantly easier because it just works, right? Like a 3D game like Tunic. See if I can get the game to show up and not the... like this. Would be actual 3D, but Hades is isometric. Is your isometric 2D or 3D? I don't know how to answer that question. I'm going to go with 2D. It's nice that every medium-large project doesn't end up bending the language and is easy to comprehend in Rust. Okay, so like I did a PR for Bevy ECS tile map. And like, to be honest, I haven't looked at the internals of Bevy ECS tile map all that much. But the fact that this library is written in Rust made me confident about my ability to do these refactors. Like, if this library was in JavaScript, which is just another language I know, I'm not picking on JavaScript, it would be much harder to figure out what exactly needs to change because you're not told what breaks. Rendering summary. Is it flat 2D sprites or actually 3D? It is flat 2D sprites. I am rendering out, I think I have it up here. I can probably just run it. Nope, that's Leaf Wing. Maybe I don't have it here right now. Let's do... I started using Git LFS for effectively the first time for all of the Blender files and stuff for the game. think I have my controller here. This is a little bit messed up right now, but it's the wrong resolution or whatnot. But this is the game, or as far as I've gotten on the game anyway. It's all 2D. It is 3D character rendered out on an isometric projection. There's 32 angles for the character. Things like stepping on sensors to change the Bevy ECS tile map rendering works. There's a ray cast, so I can change this box if I point it at it correctly. And then there's some other stuff and whatnot. The issue that I want to fix is the, like this kind of thing, where there's, like I'm standing on the tile and there's a piece above and a piece below, but I want to be in front of the back and behind the front. So that's the depth stuff that I was talking about earlier. But the Y sorting all works. Oh yeah, digging around in the Bevy source is so much nicer compared to large C++ libraries. Yeah, I can believe that. You call that 2.5D isometric? It's really 2D but looks 3D, and there's an illusion of 3D movement. Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, if you consider like Hades 2.5D, then it's exactly like that. Painter's algorithm that layers as if it was 3D. Yep, all the tiles are top left to bottom right ordered. And whatnot. How are you going through that architecture early in the stream? Are you asking me if that's what I was talking about early in the stream? Yes, that is what I was talking about early in the stream. Still waiting for basic Z ordering in Bevy. I am not sure what you mean because Bevy already has Z ordering. Yeah, the archway. That's exactly what I was talking about. Yeah. Bevy's Z coordinate is what is being used for that. I think that the implementation of the depth buffer stuff is going to greatly impact how I do the art for that game, which is why I'm holding off this week. Yeah, there's Z indexing is a thing that exists in Bevy already. I think the isometric projection requires a slightly different thing in the Y sorting. But that is still like applied to the Z index more or less. Also, Bevy ECS tile map is, I didn't really understand this until fairly recently, but it's more of a rendering abstraction than it is like a game, I guess a gameplay abstraction or whatever. It's really interesting that you have this problem because I've already had this issue myself and mostly solved it. Interesting. How did you decide to solve it? All of the tiles and stuff work. My tiles in that game are so big that if you stand on a tile, you can run into that issue that I'm trying to solve with the depth buffer. But an alternative solution, which was my backup plan, is to just make the tiles smaller. And if I make the tiles smaller, then all of the tile sorting is correct already, and it's not an issue. But it does impact the kind of stuff that I can put on the scene. Ensure clean exit, separate state crate. Yeah, so Bevy state got pulled out into its own crate now. Bevy color got pulled out into its own crate now. More idiomatic texture atlas builder? I think I missed this. Texture atlas builder default, padding, format. Oh, it's using .build instead of .finished. Okay, that's fine. That's not super interesting. Your approach was a custom component Z function with several variants. Inherit, I'm going to call that B flat bottom Y. I don't know how to pronounce that. Yeah, MEB, like Bevy ECS tile map already does Y ordering. There's also Z function compute, which takes closer, Z function offset Y. Your render path sorts based on the Z functions. Yeah, okay. I think the direction that I want to go with my stuff is I'm actually going to, I already have this up over here, so I'm just going to show it. I'm going to do effectively fake pre-rendered 3D depth maps for each sprite. So the archway here theoretically would get a per item depth map. And I know the tile sizes already, so I should be able to mathematically map that in. And then effectively what I've got is the same kind of pipeline as that happens in 3D. But basically pre-rendered out in depth maps and then applied. And if you weren't here earlier, this is what that looks like. So I already have it working in WGPU. I just need to get a depth buffer into the 2D pass in Bevy, which somebody actually already has a PR for. And then I need to make sure that I do my math correctly. I think that the depth buffer solution is actually going to be better for artistically, because I'm not going to have to worry as much about where things are. But TBD. That's it's the first time I'm writing that code, so. Let's see. Remove clamp color, dir3, Gizmo builders, render phases. The render layer limit got removed by the Nanu people, which is interesting. There's a bunch of like creative coding changes that are not necessarily user facing, but are enabling Nanu to build on top of Bevy. You'd rather chunk the image into discrete separable images with different orders, but this ZMap image is interesting. Yeah, I mean, the tile map is already chunked. Like, all of the tiles themselves work. So if I was doing literally a tile-based game where you could only stand in the middle of a tile or something, like, all of that already works. There would need to be no changes there. Or if everything was tile-sized, or the colliders were built such that you could only be like in front or behind whatever. Yeah, so that's the kind of thing that I want to try to avoid. I want to try to avoid doing 2 images for the archway, right? Because the thing that I want to do for a lot of the art stuff is actually build things in Blender and render them out. And I can render out depth and render out the images, but chopping things up strategically sounds like just a lot of extra non-automatable work. And I think using the depth buffer would mean that I can like rely on Blender to render out that map. How would you render the depth in Blender? I haven't done that yet, so TBD. Have you ever seen code written in a foreign language? I have. I don't use any of them because I'm not fluent in many other languages. But I've definitely seen a bunch of them. World query get, exposure, weight, common mesh builder trait. Asset loading is a thing that I need to dig deeper into and make a video on. I think a lot of people get confused about asset loading. I feel like the people who have done custom asset loaders really like it, right? There's that game Extortion, made by a person I can't remember the name of. And they do splines in Blender and pull it in via a custom asset loader. And they get hot reloading for their levels, which is really cool. But I don't think a lot of people understand how to write an asset loader. As soon as they added the meta files, 99% of the people using Blender turned it off. What do you mean, turn the meta files off? Add more load direct implementations. UI stuff, normalized matrix naming we just looked at earlier. Gizmos, component reflection. The plane mesh builder, the new one, got subdivisions again. So plane 3D in the last release had subdivisions, and the infinite plane mesh and the plane mesh builder or whatever didn't have that feature, but now it does for the release. Asset meta check never. Interesting. Why use 10 minutes of my time hard coding the values when I can spend 2 days setting up an automatic pipeline? Are you referring to the splitting of images? I think the issue with that for me, and the reason I don't want to do it manually, is that it's 10 minutes for every image that I want to split for every iteration that I want to do. Right? So I'm trying to avoid taking that on for the art that I want to create, because it makes creating the art more onerous. And ideally, if I was ever going to work with somebody who was, you know, better at Blender than I am, I would want them to be able to just render things out of Blender and give them to me. Can I show a side-by-side? Yeah. You are looking for what? You're looking for the sprite and the depth map? Let's pull these both up. This is what it looks like right now. This is just something I did in Photoshop. Just to be clear. Like the image on the right is just like I literally opened this in Photoshop and I just painted it. Because I was testing stuff. Ideally, this will have a little bit more detail in it. But yeah. If you do figure anything out relating to it, please do let me know. I am very interested. Okay, subdivisions for Plane Mesh Builder got in. That'll be interesting for like procedural generation algorithms and stuff like that. Options for mesh primitives. Point light to clusterable object. Okay, I actually didn't see as much of the rendering stuff as I wanted to see. Take a look at the release notes. Basically, oh, we didn't run the light gizmos. I wanted to do that. Run, example. Ooh, light maps is another one. Let's check out the light gizmos. This is very cool. Do we get this for free? Like if I put a light in the scene, do I just get the gizmo if I want to turn it on? My theory is you cannot generate a depth map for that automatically, but I don't know. Perhaps raycasting every pixel with a Blender script and generating an alpha from that could work. Yeah. It's nice to see that before the full deprecation of that plain 3D, that we got all of the features into the new types. I'm pretty sure you can generate the, well, okay. So Spencer, the reason I think that it's automatically generatable, right, is because if I'm in Blender and I'm working in 3D and then I take that into Bevy, Bevy will do the depth map already with WGPU. So it has to create that already. Right? Like that has to be possible already because that's how the 3D pipeline works. So it's basically just pre-rendering the 3D pipeline that already happens. Color text. Thanks for nerd sniping me. Hey, you know what? I'm 1 in 100 for having nerd sniped chat instead of having chat nerd snipe me. I'll take the win. Let's see. Where are the gizmos? Light config. Draw all. Light gizmo config. Match light color. Sick. Okay, so these are automatic, more or less. You have to enable them, but it does look like it's just light gizmo config group, and then it'll show them, which is exactly what I wanted. That's sick. And then Axes. Axes is the other one that we didn't look at. It's interesting that that's not named Axes Gizmos. That's very cool too. I wonder how automated that is, or if that's just a child. Show axes. This isn't defined in this file, is it? Oh, it is. Okay. BBR bundle, transform tracking. Where does transform tracking come from? This is local for sure. Yeah. Okay, what do we got? Move cubes, draw axes. Where's draw axes? Okay, yeah, so it's just running the gizmos separately. Not as cool as the light gizmos. The light gizmos are amazing. One thing that I need to look at the light map stuff at some point too. Oh, the Cornell box. I didn't know what this was until I started writing a ray tracer. Obviously, my ray tracer is not production quality, but it was fun. I think these are pre-baked light probes. But after I do this isometric game, I'm going to do a 3D game and try to get into all of these different lighting and 3D rendering stuff. There's just too much cool stuff going in, and it would be nice to see more, screenshots of it working in the world. GPU readback, scene, reflection, math. Did I accidentally just move reflection in there? Yeah. Did you do some new projects with your Pico? Just finished your Pico project? I didn't do any new projects. I did this rendering with the Inky frame with a custom driver. And then I've got this ESP32 Rust dev board that I was working with. Yes, this is all just laying on my desk. You can imagine how messy my desk is. And then there's this breadboard that you will definitely not be able to see. But this breadboard is there's a motor, a readout, and a driver that I'm combining. And I'm hoping to turn that into like a nice functional dial with some haptic feedback, but that is not going to happen for a little bit here. I've got to do the Bevy stuff for the 0.14 release, and then I've got to do, I've got to write a talk on WASM and like leptos and stuff like that. So I've got a lot on my plate at the moment. I've got to update. Actually, let's do that. Let's see. Where are we? Yada, yada, yada. Let's upgrade a game. 2048. Zero 14. Oh, that's not how you type that. GCO-B. Okay, so let's run this and make sure it works, make sure I'm in the right directory. Ink paper, e-paper screens are expensive. Yes, absolutely. And they're not actually that functional either if you're trying to do anything that renders a lot. So, I don't know. They are low power though, which is nice. What time is it? 9:30. Could not compile WGPU. Okay, let's do a cargo clean. Eight gigs, dang. Cargo Tamil. This is just, I don't know if Bevy Easings has gotten RC release yet. Let's go find out. Four hours ago. That sounds like an RC commit. Is it already on crates? Bevy Easings. That's not on crates.io, so we'll have to do a git dependency for this. HTTPS clone cargo run to make sure this works. I don't think that this is going to be a hard upgrade. The things that I can think of offhand are the colors changed. And I don't know that there's actually very much more functionally that will need to change in this example. But yeah, I think that rendering the depth map images out of Blender is probably going to be one of the easier things to do. Yada, yada, yada. All works. End game, new game, yada, yada. Cool. So let's open this up. Let's put this over here, make it a little bit bigger. We'll do Bevy 0.14.0, RC.2, and then Bevy Easings, the version, git equals this. I think this will just take main, so we'll live with that for the moment. I think itertools is on 0.13 at this point. Rand, I don't think has had an update. And then we'll run it and see what we get. I'm expecting a couple of issues, but I'm not expecting a lot of issues. Why are we blocking on the build directory? Yeah, we've already got, okay, clear color, color hex, maybe, plugins, resource state, events. Oh, this returns an app exit now, so that needs to be semicoloned. Color stuff needs to be changed a little bit. RGB is deprecated for sRGB, so we'll just throw in the sRGB here. Let's see. Color, color, literally just color. So let's do, where's this? Main, UI, with A. I don't know that with A is a thing anymore. Maybe it's with alpha? Oh, cool. I do think that this is not what I'm going to want long term. I think I'm going to change this. But is hex not a thing anymore? Where did hex go? One thing keeping you from Rust is the compile times. That is entirely possible. Especially if you have like a lower end computer. I've heard people having more concerns about the compile times. I generally have like the most powerful computer I can buy because this is, you know, my job. So, and I do, so one of the things that I do like to bring up every time like the compile time thing is brought up is the things that Rust is doing at compile time are things that I want it to do. Right. So like I want the work that is being done at compile time to happen. And that means that that time is never going to be zero. So iterative compiles, like Evilope is saying, are fine. Those are an issue. As you can see, I just rebuilt this whole thing 3 times or so since we've been looking at it. Great streaming setup. Thanks, Simon. The window management is you buy. It's this thing. You buy. Hello, Gava. How's it going? Your job too, but new to Rust coming from C++. Yeah. Yeah, I'm definitely not saying that everybody can or should have the most powerful computer possible, but for me, that's a priority I make, if that makes sense. Like having faster compute is important to me. It's sRGB now. Thank you. I was just looking that up. And then this needs to be, I don't know if this is going to change. This needs to be intoed. I know there was a discussion happening yesterday or the day before about the palettes being in sRGB. But again, there's been a lot of discussion and it's very easy to just like spout opinions about color stuff. So I'm just not going to get into that. Writing an into or whatever is not that bad of a thing. Okay, so everything looks good here other than the state management looks broken. I don't know if I'm not clicking on this or what. And then the padding around these sprites is broken, which is interesting. But the game itself works. So interesting. Yada, yada, yada. This is a test. Can we run the cargo test and see if that works? Right. App.world is now a function. We don't need this because it returns a shared reference. Apply state transition might have had a change to it. Command queue. I think command queue had a change to it. And this is world mute. No. And then this is going to be world. And then we've got command queue and apply state transition left for the test. Bevy ECS command queue. No command queue in system. So what happened to command queue? Let's get this other RGB as well while we're here. Okay, so apply state transition is only for testing purposes. And then command queue, we have to look up because I don't know why that would be different. You're already afraid of updating Warbler Grass? Updating code that uses more internal rendering stuff has been painful in the last release. Yeah, the Bevy ECS tile map PR that I put up earlier or yesterday or the day before or whatever was not too bad. But if you're using like render graph stuff, I imagine that that's going to be a really interesting set of releases. I know the render graph is actually being potentially rewritten or something like that. So internal queue, maybe that's what we need. Let's try to find the PR that changed this. Commands, entity, insert, raw command queue. Can we just upgrade to raw command queue and be done with it? I don't think it's in system, but wasn't that easy. World command queue, raw command queue. So Bevy. Where's world? See, this is the Bevy ECS crate. So Bevy ECS world command queue. Bevy ECS world command queue. Maybe it just moved. And then the other one that we need to figure out is apply state transition. Which looks, what is actually the issue with it? Can't find it in scope. Interesting. It doesn't look like it's public anymore. Interesting. apply state transition. That's not what I want. I don't think this is available anymore. Let's see. Let's see. Apply state transition. And then that. So this got removed. I wonder, run the state transition schedule instead. Okay. So then do I need to just set up the Bevy state plugin or something? I have minimal plugins here. There's no state plugin. Okay, so I need to figure that out. I don't know exactly what we're going to do there. Basically, the applied state transition is there in this test so that the state transition occurs in the same frame. So we don't technically need it, but to remove it would be a little bit of a refactor. Yeah. So I'll figure that out. What time is it? 9:44. Oop, that's not what I wanted to do. Okay, I need to look at this and figure out what the actual change is going to be. And I don't know that this is going to be in an example anywhere, especially if it got removed. Let's see, is it in here? Apply state transition. Internal. Well, let's see if we even need it, honestly. My guess is we do. My guess is this test fails if we don't have it, but yeah. So the other thing that we can do here is this. Oops. So the apply, ooh, actually that didn't work. Interesting. Okay, maybe there's something deeper going on here that I need to figure out. So I guess I'll leave that. But it does look like the vast majority of the game is going to be untouched other than that test. I am very interested to see how to test this. But I'll push this up to GitHub when I figure it out. Oh, you think I should just run the schedule? That makes more sense. So do I have world here? I don't know that I have world here. App dot world mute probably. Run schedule. State transition. I don't. The only thing is like if this does work, which it did, I need a deeper understanding of why. And I get it, right? In the sense of like the state transition stuff now doesn't get run by apply state transition. It gets run differently now, or in its own schedule or whatever. But I don't think this comment is true anymore. So fundamentally, I think that the state transition schedule has to run for the state to move to the next state. App update no longer has an impact unless the state schedule is running. Why the state schedule is not running is probably because it's not added is what I want to say. Right? Like, so that's what I need to look into that. But the test does pass now, which is cool. So theoretically, if we were going to end the game, which I am not going to play out the full 2048, that would work. The button feels like it's not clicking. So I need to look into that. Yeah, apply state transitions is a bunch of systems now. Yeah. Okay, so I think this query is probably wrong now, probably due to the background color or something like that. I am starting to not feel very good right now, so I think I'm going to end the stream here. Thanks everyone for showing up, and I'll be back next weekend again.